The first sound is the creak of oars on the Tiber, slow, ancient, echoing through the mist, as if time itself were rowing toward its own awakening. The water, thick and silver under dawn's pale shroud, carries the scent of wet reeds and cold stone. Somewhere beyond the fog, a dog barks, the sound swallowed by distance, by history still dreaming. Then comes light, soft, trembling, spilling like spilled gold across the slopes of the Palatine Hill. Here, among wooden huts and drifting smoke, shepherds wake to the rhythm of survival. Their hands, roughened by earth and sheep's wool, cup around flames that hiss and whisper in the morning chill. A woman hums inside a thatched dwelling, her song low and wordless, the heartbeat of a people not yet called Romans. A wolf's pelt hangs from her doorway, its fur stiff with time, its hollow eyes watching the fields where legends will take root. The narrator's voice, like wind across old stone. From mud and ash, from hunger and song, the first breath of empire was drawn. Down by the riverbank, two boys wrestle, twins bound not only by blood, but by the cruel mercy of fate. Romulus, fierce and restless, his strength a mirror of the hills that cradle him. Remus, cunning and sharp-eyed, with the smile of one who questions the gods themselves. They tumble among the reeds, laughter breaking through the fog like the first sound of thunder before a storm. Their skin is streaked with mud, their breath white in the morning air. But behind that laughter, the shadow of a beast still lingers. The she-wolf spirit, carved into their bones, watches from the edges of memory. Her fangs are not forgotten, her milk still burns in their veins. Years pass like falling ash. The boys become men, their dreams swelling with the horizon. Around them, the hill begins to stir with hands and hope. Posts rise, ropes tighten, the air thick with sawdust and smoke. Romulus stands at the center, eyes dark, jaw set, dragging his plow through the damp soil. The furrow he draws is more than a line. It is a promise carved into the flesh of the earth. Behind him, men murmur prayers. Augurs trace omens in the flight of circling birds. The wind carries whispers from the forest, half blessing, half warning. Remus watches. His gaze flickers between pride and defiance. He steps forward, the soil soft beneath his sandals. Perhaps he means to test his brother's will. Perhaps he cannot bear the weight of a boundary that dares to separate their souls. One step. A shadow crosses the sun. The world holds its breath. A cry breaks through the silence, sharp, human, final. The blade flashes once, and the earth drinks its first Roman blood. Remus falls, his eyes wide with the last light of disbelief. Romulus stands above him, chest heaving, face pale, with the realization that destiny's hand is colder than he imagined. The silence that follows is not empty. It hums, alive with the grief of creation. The wind moves through the reeds like a funeral chant. The river, once gentle, carries the blood downstream into history's veins. High above, vultures wheel in slow, deliberate circles. Augurs watch them, whispering to the gods through trembling lips. From this death, a city will rise. And so it begins. Around the body, men lift torches. The smoke curls upward, black and fragrant, mingling with the scent of iron and wet clay. They chant the names of forgotten spirits, guardians of hearth, field, and river. Their words roll like thunder over the hills. Romulus kneels beside his brother, his hand trembling as it closes the eyes that once mirrored his own. In that motion, the city is born, not from triumph, but from loss. Rome's first heartbeat is a sob swallowed by firelight. As night descends, torches bloom like stars across the 7 hills. Their flames flicker against faces hardened by faith and fear. Wooden stakes mark the outline of something greater than any man can see. A boundary drawn not only in soil, but in soul. The Tiber gleams under the moon, a mirror for gods who watch and wait. Romulus stands alone now, his cloak snapping in the wind. The chants fade to murmurs. He gazes toward the dark horizon, where the shapes of future legions march unseen. In the silence, his voice is little more than a vow. She will be eternal. The river answers with a low sigh. The hills echo it, soft, mournful, certain. In time, temples will rise where huts once smoked. Marble will cover the bones of mud and straw. The laughter of shepherds will become the roar of crowds. And from the furrow of a plow, empires will unfurl like banners in the sun. But tonight, the torches tremble in the wind. The wolf's bronze effigy gleams in the firelight. Her jaws open, her fangs glistening as though wet with the blood of prophecy. Her gaze is fixed not on the dead, but on the centuries yet to come. Somewhere in the dark, the first priests of the new city whisper their rites, and the echo of their words seems to rise from the soil itself. Glory demands sacrifice. Above the Tiber, the mist gathers once more, veiling the newborn city in its shroud. The oars fall silent, the night exhales, and from that silence, Rome begins to breathe. The final image lingers, the bronze wolf beneath the stars, her eyes reflecting the fire of men not yet born. Her snarl is both warning and promise. Beyond the hill, dawn waits, and with it, the centuries of conquest and ruin that will follow. For in this moment, in this stillness heavy with smoke and destiny, the world has shifted. The gods have spoken, and Rome, baptized in a brother's blood, begins its long, unstoppable march toward eternity. The clang of bronze shields reverberates through the newborn forum, a sound that trembles between stone and sky, between memory and prophecy. Once this place was a swamp, a nest of reeds and mud, where frogs croaked and the Tiber overflowed. Now it is paved with ambition, each slab of stone laid like a heartbeat, pulsing towards empire. The mist still clings to the ground, tasting faintly of iron and sweat, as men in woolen togas pass beneath the shadow of the Capitoline hill. Their sandals whisper across marble, still raw from quarry dust, their breath heavy with the scent of oil lamps and dust and power newly awakened.
Rome is growing. She does not breathe gently, she hungers. The sound of chisels sings from the hilltops, temples rising toward Jupiter's unblinking gaze. Smoke curls from altars where priests murmur prayers in a tongue that now carries weight. Latin, no longer crude or local, but sacred. Incense burns sweet and heavy, wrapping the city in clouds that smell of devotion and deceit. The streets hum with trade, olives pressed into golden oil, amphora of salt stacked like shields, and wine spilling dark and sticky down the tables of men who believe they have built eternity. But beneath the hum of markets and the laughter of merchants, there is unease, a quiet, brittle tension, as if the city itself knows that its peace is only a mask. A woman's cry pierces the forum. Her husband, a magistrate accused of betrayal, is summoned before the Senate. The crowd parts like the Red Sea, their faces flickering in torchlight. Bronze axes gleam at the edges of lictors' bundles, rods bound tight with rope, the symbol of power made flesh. Justice here is not blind. It is watching, waiting, sharpening its blade. He speaks, voice trembling, eyes lifted toward marble columns that bear witness. But Rome has already chosen. The verdict falls like thunder, and when the axe descends, even the gods seem to turn their faces away. Blood darkens the stone, soaking into the cracks, the same stone that once drank the blood of kings. Freedom in this new republic tastes of iron and fear. Above the city, the Capitoline stands in solemn majesty. Its temples gleam in the morning sun, their steps slick with dew. Senators ascend those steps, wrapped in white, their faces grave, their hearts burning with the fever of ideas. They speak of liberty, of law, of reason, of virtue, words bright as polished bronze. Yet behind each noble syllable hides the echo of a crown, a whisper of monarchy not yet buried. Inside their homes, the patricians feast. Tables groan beneath roasted boar glistening with honey, figs dripping with sweetness, wine poured thick and red. Laughter mingles with the crackle of torches. Outside, slaves polish bronze urns and sweep away the bones. Silent shadows moving through corridors of marble they will never own. The air smells of smoke and power, of men convinced the gods dine beside them. In the streets below, the voices of the people rise. Across the Tiber, commoners, the plebeians, hammer their plowshares into crude weapons, the rhythm of rebellion ringing like a warning drum. They demand bread. They demand voice. They demand to be seen by the city that was built on their backs. The narrator's voice lowers, rough with memory. Rome was learning that freedom is never given. It is taken, again and again, until it bleeds. The forum becomes an arena of words. Senators no longer wield swords, but syllables, each phrase sharper than steel. The ancestors of Cicero are here, learning to fight with rhetoric, to draw blood with reason. The air quivers with argument, phrases crashing like shields. Every debate is a battle, every silence a surrender. And yet, beneath the sound of voices, beneath the thunder of ideas, the ghost of monarchy lingers. It prowls the Senate steps like a shadow unchained. Some men glance upward, as if expecting to see the face of a forgotten king peering through the clouds. Others dare not speak the thought aloud, that power, once tasted, never truly dies. Inside their homes, the patricians feast. Tables groan beneath roasted boar glistening with honey, figs dripping with sweetness, wine poured thick and red. Laughter mingles with the crackle of torches. Outside, slaves polish bronze urns and sweep away the bones. Silent shadows moving through corridors of marble they will never own. The air smells of smoke and power, of men convinced the gods dine beside them. In the streets below, the voices of the people rise. Across the Tiber, commoners, the plebeians, hammer their plowshares into crude weapons, the rhythm of rebellion ringing like a warning drum. They demand bread. They demand voice. They demand to be seen by the city that was built on their backs. The narrator's voice lowers, rough with memory. Rome was learning that freedom is never given. It is taken, again and again. Then, lightning. A sudden, blinding strike splits the heavens. The sky screams, and the Capitoline temple shudders beneath the blow. Flames leap from the marble roof, licking at the bronze statue of Jupiter. Priests rush into the storm, their torches hissing in the rain, robes clinging to their bodies. They murmur that the gods are listening, that the heavens themselves have heard the arguments of men. In the flicker of that divine fire, something changes. The Republic, so proud, so new, feels the weight of its own reflection. The senators stare into the smoke and see not their faces, but the shape of destiny, vast, indifferent, and hungry. As the rain falls, the streets empty. The torches sputter out one by one. The city exhales, weary, restless. From the Palatine to the Forum, the echoes of sandals fade into silence. Inside the Senate, the marble floor glistens beneath the dying light. The air smells of incense and wet stone. Scrolls lie open on the benches, laws half written, promises half kept.
Two fauces rest side by side, the rods bound tight with rope. Power and unity, they say, but the cords are fraying. Beneath the surface, the first cracks have begun to spread. Invisible, inevitable. In the shadows between columns, a gust of wind stirs the banners. The faint sound of thunder rolls once more across the hills. Rome stands on the edge of something unseen. Her republic, young, unsteady, brilliant in its ambition, and blind to its doom. The narrator's voice softens, reverent and mournful. They believed they had slain the tyrant forever. But monarchy is not a man. It is a hunger. It walks beside them still. The camera lingers on the empty Senate floor. The echo of retreating footsteps. The gleam of rain pooled in the cracks of marble. The torches burn low. Outside, the forum waits in silence. The city is alive, restless in its new freedom, trembling with possibility and pride. But beneath its streets, beneath its stones, something ancient stirs, the whisper of ambition that no republic can silence. The bronze wolf watches from her pedestal on the hill, her gaze turned toward the horizon. Lightning flickers once more across the clouds, and in that flash her fangs gleam, wet with rain, or perhaps with prophecy. As the storm drifts east and the night deepens, Rome sleeps uneasily. Her people dream of law and liberty, but the gods dream of empire. And somewhere in the darkness, the ghost of a crown glints faintly, waiting for a head bold enough to wear it. Dawn bleeds slowly over a battlefield of dust and hoofprints. The wind carries the stench of sweat and iron, mingled with the faint sweetness of crushed grass and spilled blood. Across the plains, the bodies of Gauls and Samnites lie tangled in silence, faces turned toward a sun they will never see again. The earth is scarred, plow lines of war carved deep by chariots and marching feet, and from the haze the legions rise. Their armor gleams dully beneath the newborn light, bronze plates scuffed, shields streaked with grime and blood. They move not as men, but as one vast creature of discipline, each step measured, each breath bound to the next. Scarlet standards sway above them like rivers of flame, catching the dawn. The ground trembles beneath their march, the rhythm of an empire being born in dust and thunder.
Every soldier bears an eagle on his chest, not of flesh, but of faith, a prayer cast in bronze, a promise to the gods that his blood will not be spilled in vain. Their lips do not move, yet their hearts whisper the same word: Gloria, glory, the kind that devours as much as it gives. Far from the battlefield, in lands once foreign, Latin words fall from new tongues like sparks from a forge. In Sicilian ports, traders now haggle in the language of Rome. In Hispania's vineyards, slaves whisper prayers in Latin before the harvest. Along the African coast, the standards of the eagle rise above cities older than memory.
Each conquest brings another echo, another syllable of Rome's spreading voice, a tongue of empire burning through the world like wildfire. In the Senate, marble gleams beneath torches that never die. Sandals strike the floor with a hollow, sacred rhythm as men speak the names of new provinces. Sicilia, Hispania, Africa. Each word falls like a hammer, not on stone, but on the souls of those who will bear the weight of them. Outside, runners race through the streets, carrying news of victory, their bare feet smearing dust across the sacred stones. Trumpets sound, bells toll, Rome rejoices. But even amid triumph, a shadow lingers. For every laurel crown woven in joy, another hangs silent on an empty doorway. Wives wait in courtyards lit by trembling oil lamps, pressing the scent of olive leaves to their faces, a poor substitute for the smell of the men they love. Mothers whisper to sleeping children that their fathers will return, though the stars above their rooftops have already watched those fathers die. And the generals, the victors, they march home through gates hung with garlands, their arms heavy with spoils and their brows crowned in gold. Yet behind the gleam of their armor, their eyes are restless, for conquest has no mercy for those who taste it. Glory, once swallowed, becomes a hunger that cannot be sated. The Republic swells like a stretched skin, taut with ambition, pulsing with pride and fear. Its borders are lines drawn in blood. Its peace, an illusion paid for by exhaustion. Senators sit in candlelight, their quills scratching across parchment, ink flowing like veins of control. Each decree binds another city, each law another people. The sound is soft, almost tender, yet it carries the weight of chains. In the shadow of a temple, a slave kneels. His skin is dust from Africa, his hands raw from labor. He scrubs at red clay caked into the marble steps. Rome's dust, Rome's blood, until the white stone gleams again. As he works, he hums a song, a low, broken tune of a homeland lost beneath salt and fire. The melody drifts upward through the pillars and vanishes into the wind. The sound of the conquered, remembered only by the defeated. The sun sinks, shadows lengthen across the 7 hills, and above it all the Capitoline looms, Rome's crown, black against a bruised sky. A storm gathers there, heavy and silent, its clouds lit from within by flashes of distant fire. The smell of rain mixes with incense. The first drops strike the marble like tears. The Senate's torches flicker. The city holds its breath. Then thunder. Deep, rolling, relentless, like drums calling unseen legions to march again. Rome commands the world, yet cannot command herself. She wears the laurel, but her heart beats like a drum of war. Inside the Curia, one torch remains burning. Its flame wavers in the draught, painting trembling shadows on the walls carved with decrees and victories. It catches the face of a bronze statue, the god of war, Mars, his expression cold, eternal, smiling faintly as though amused by mankind's endless hunger. Outside, the wind rises. The city moans under its own weight, stone creaking, banners snapping in the dark. Somewhere, a soldier dreams of home. Somewhere, a mother wakes, sensing a loss she cannot name. And on the horizon, lightning rips the sky apart. For an instant, the world is white. The hills, the temples, the eagle standards gleaming in ghostly light. Then, all is shadow again. The storm breaks over the city. Rain hammers rooftops, floods alleyways, washes the blood from the stones. The Tiber swells, its waters foaming against the embankments, carrying whispers from every conquered shore. The torch in the curia flutters, almost dying, then steadies. The bronze face of Mars gleams once more. His eyes, blind yet knowing, seem to glint in the lightning's flash. The narrator's voice fades into the rumble of thunder. Rome has built her throne upon the bones of nations, but the God who guards her throne smiles still. His work is far from done. As the rain continues to fall, the streets glisten, veins of silver winding through the heart of empire. The sound of it is soft, relentless, like the breathing of a beast too vast to rest. And in that sound, somewhere beneath the thunder and the wind, one can almost hear it. The faint clash of swords yet to be drawn, the promise of battles yet unborn. Rome sleeps, but Mars does not. He waits, patient, eternal, for the next dawn to bleed once more across another field of dust and hoofprints. Rain gathers on the edge of the world. It falls over the Italian hills like the breath of the gods, cold, relentless, whispering of fate. Beneath the storm, a river cuts through the earth like a wound, the Rubicon. Its waters shimmer black beneath the thunder, reflecting not the sky above, but the shadows of what is about to be lost. A man stands at its bank, his cloak heavy with rain. Julius Caesar. His face is carved with exhaustion and resolve, his eyes lit by the fire of something greater than ambition, conviction sharpened by prophecy. Behind him, the legions wait in perfect stillness, shields glistening, their discipline a kind of prayer. The storm presses close. For a moment, the world holds its breath. Caesar looks back toward the land he leaves, the republic that made him, that fears him, that will soon kneel to his name. He speaks softly, voice barely audible over the wind. Alea iacta est. The die is cast. A single hoof splashes through the water, then another, then the thunder of an army crossing eternity. The Rubicon churns red with mud and destiny, and history itself shifts beneath the weight of iron and will. The narrator's voice deepens, solemn, prophetic. From this river, Rome would no longer be ruled by men, but by one man's shadow. As the rain continues to fall, the streets glisten, veins of silver winding through the heart of empire. The sound of it is soft, relentless, like the breathing of a beast too vast to rest. And in that sound, somewhere, beneath the thunder and the wind, One can almost hear it, the faint clash of swords yet to be drawn, the promise of battles yet unborn. Rome sleeps, but Mars does not. He waits, patient, eternal, for the next dawn to bleed once more across another field of dust and hoofprints.
The march to power is not swift, it is inevitable. The legions move like a tide, silent, tireless, ancient. Villages empty before them. The air hums with the smell of wet leather, burning oil, and fear. When Caesar enters Rome, it is not as a conqueror, but as something worse, a mirror in which every senator sees his own doom. The Forum, once the heart of debate, now trembles beneath banners of crimson and gold. Statues of old heroes, Brutus, Scipio, Pompey, watch in silence as their ideals are traded for survival. The Senate's marble halls glow with lamplight, but in the corners shadows pool like secrets. The whisper of silk hides the glint of daggers. At night, the city murmurs with unrest. Plebeians gather beneath dripping archways, speaking Caesar's name as though it were both blessing and curse. Soldiers patrol the streets, their spears clinking softly against stone. In taverns, men toast to peace with wine that tastes of iron. And far across the sea, another throne waits. Cleopatra of Egypt, the serpent queen, wrapped in linen and perfume, receives him like a storm in flesh. In Alexandria's marble chambers, torches burn with honeyed smoke, and the Nile murmurs like a sleeping god. She moves with the stillness of power, eyes catching light as though the sun itself bends to her. Rome meets Egypt, ambition meets desire. Together they weave a tapestry of empire, threads of conquest and silk, blood and gold. But back in Rome, whispers grow louder. The Senate feels the earth shifting beneath its marble floors. The old gods stir uneasily. Rome, mother of law, now kneels before a man who calls himself eternal. The narrator's voice slows, heavy as the tread of soldiers through rain. Freedom has many lovers, but power needs none. The streets become theaters of spectacle. Caesar's triumphs march through the city, chariots gilded, captives in chains, musicians drowning the cries of those dragged from foreign soil. Beggars press against the curbs, faces splattered with mud from the wheels of glory. They see his laurel crown and do not cheer. They bow from hunger, not devotion. Above them, marble balconies overflow with senators who smile through clenched teeth. And in the Curia, by candlelight, the air thick with wax and smoke, a plot coils tighter each night. Daggers are passed hand to hand, slender, glinting, almost holy. Each man who touches one feels its chill as a confession. Brutus, Cassius, Casca, names soon to be written in blood. They speak not of murder, but of restoration, of Rome's salvation, of what must die for the Republic to live. The narrator's tone softens, distant, almost sorrowful. They did not see that Rome itself was already dying, not with steel, but with silence. Then comes the Ides of March. Morning light spills through the Senate's marble columns, bright and merciless. Dust drifts in the air, golden as ash. Outside, the people gather, their voices hushed. Inside, the conspirators wait, cloaked in civility. Caesar enters, his white toga luminous beneath the high ceiling. He smiles, not the smile of a tyrant, but of a man who has forgotten how many ghosts walk beside him. He ascends the steps of Pompey's theater. The marble glows beneath his sandals, and there, beneath the stone gaze of Pompey himself, the rival he once destroyed, the circle closes. A whisper passes through the chamber, then steel.
The first knife cuts through cloth, not flesh. The sound is soft, almost human, like fabric tearing in the wind. Then another, then another. Caesar turns. He does not cry out. He only looks, searching faces, searching hearts. When he sees Brutus, his voice breaks, not in anger, but in disbelief. Et tu, Brute? Blood pools on the marble floor, dark as the Tiber at night. The senators scatter, their sandals slap against the stone, echoing like footsteps retreating from history. Caesar's body lies at the foot of Pompey's statue, his lifeblood mingling with the rain that leaks through the cracks in the roof. The marble glistens. The dream of the Republic dies beside him. Then silence. A ring slips from his finger. It rolls across the floor, slow and deliberate, its ruby catching the flicker of torchlight. It spins once, twice, and comes to rest in a puddle of blood. The narrator's voice lowers to a whisper. The jewel of empire lost to silence. Outside, thunder rolls over Rome once more. The same storm that once watched a man cross a river now watches his fall. The city shudders beneath its own memory of kings, of laws, of freedom fading into shadow. Somewhere in the streets, a soothsayer whispers to no one, his voice drowned by the rain, "Beware the Ides." And far away, on the banks of the Nile, Cleopatra feels the wind shift. The torches gutter. The world turns cold. Rome, once ruled by counsel, now wanders without a heart. The eagle flies still, but its wings are stained red. The torch of Mars flickers in the Curia, its flame bending low, as if bowing to the ghost that just entered the halls of eternity. He crossed the Rubicon, the narrator murmurs, but it was not a river that marked his doom. It was himself. The storm passes. Only silence remains. And from that silence, the echo of hooves returning, distant, unseen, begins the next march of empire. Smoke drifts upward, slow, deliberate, like the spirit of a dying god refusing to leave the earth. The pyre of the Republic burns beneath a sky swollen with grief. Its flames lick the night, casting trembling shadows across the marble faces of those who watch. Some weep, some kneel, others stand silent, counting the embers as if each were a coin from the treasury of an age now gone. Among them, a young man watches, motionless, Octavian. Barely more than a boy, yet his eyes do not flinch before the fire. Half his face glows gold with reflected light, the other half drowns in shadow. Behind those eyes, something ancient stirs, the cold arithmetic of destiny. The narrator's voice falls to a whisper, like wind over tombstones. The Republic is ash. From its smoke will rise a crown. Rome trembles. The Forum, once alive with the arguments of statesmen, now lies hushed, its stones blackened by the flames of civil war. Statues of heroes stand cracked and hollow-eyed, their marble cheeks streaked with soot. The Tiber carries away the ashes of the old world. Senators, soldiers, ideals, all dissolved into its murky depths. And in the wake of that ruin, the boy begins to rebuild.
Augustus gathers not just legions, but loyalty. His voice is measured, his promises careful, his vengeance quiet. He moves not like a conqueror, but like a surgeon, cutting away rot to preserve the body. The Senate, weary of blood and chaos, kneels before the illusion of peace. They crown him not as king, for Rome will tolerate no kings, but as something subtler, something divine. Augustus, the revered one. The name settles on him like dust, soft, inevitable, eternal. Under his hand, the wounds of war are buried beneath marble and order. Mud gives way to stone. Law replaces ambition. Roads stretch outward from Rome like veins of a living god, carrying its pulse to every corner of the known world. In the taverns of Gaul, a legionnaire drinks from a chipped cup, muttering the emperor's name with weary reverence. In the sands of Egypt, merchants carve his likeness into clay, blending it with the faces of their own forgotten gods. From the mist of Britannia to the gates of Syria, the empire breathes, vast, restless, omnipotent. He built peace, the narrator murmurs, but peace built upon conquest still smells of iron. And yet, within that peace, beauty blooms. Under olive trees outside the city walls, the poet Virgil speaks to the wind. His verses rise like incense, words woven with prophecy. Arma virumque cano, of arms and the man I sing. His song glorifies empire, dresses ambition in the robes of destiny. The shepherd listens, the soldier nods, the emperor smiles. Rome, it seems, has found its story, one it will believe for 1,000 years. But even in marble, shadows find their way. The palaces glitter with gold, their floors cool beneath bare feet, their ceilings painted with gods who watch and do not speak. Yet in the corridors whispers flow like poison, of heirs yet unborn, of wives who dream of freedom, of generals whose loyalty bends only to the weight of fortune. Augustus walks these halls in silence, his sandals echoing softly. Every door he passes hides a rumor, every smile conceals a blade. The empire grows rich, fat with tribute, its fountains singing over graves no one tends anymore. Beneath the streets, the bones of slaves and soldiers alike form the hidden foundations of eternity. Above them, senators feast. A banquet, the stage upon which power pretends to be peace. Silver platters gleam beneath torchlight, figs split open like wounds, glistening red. Roasted pheasant perfumes the air, mingling with laughter that sounds too sharp, too bright. Musicians play softly, their notes fragile as spider silk. Wine flows like blood reborn, staining the lips of those who speak of loyalty and think of treason. At the center, the emperor lifts his cup. His ring, gold, heavy, radiant, catches the light and for a moment seems a halo. He smiles, but his eyes do not. The laughter around him swells, but beneath it hums something darker, the fear that comes with perfection. For what cannot be improved can only begin to decay. Rome has achieved eternity, the narrator says, voice quiet, or so it believes. The camera drifts beyond the feasting hall, through columns, through corridors, into the city that glows beneath moonlight. The streets glimmer with oil lamps, the temples hum with prayer. The empire sleeps, dreaming of immortality. Yet in the dream, cracks begin to form, small, invisible, patient. By the banks of the Tiber, a mother hums a lullaby to a child who will one day serve in a war she cannot name. In a distant province, a stonecutter carves an eagle into the side of a milestone, unaware that the road he marks will one day carry the soldiers who burn his village. Every act of creation, every stroke of glory, hides a seed of its undoing. And so, beneath the calm surface of Augustus's reign, the gods themselves seem to hold their breath. From prayer, the narrator whispers, comes empire. From empire, memory. We move closer now to the altar of peace. The Ara Pacis stands white and perfect, carved from marble that glows like bone. Around its walls, craftsmen have etched the story of a world redeemed. Mothers and children, senators and gods, doves and laurels. The reliefs shimmer in the afternoon sun, each figure immortal, untouched by pain.
But the men who carved them, their hands still blistered from war, are long forgotten. The marble tells of peace, but the silence beneath it remembers screams. A breeze moves through the forum, carrying dust from the pyre that once burned the Republic. It settles over the altar, faint but unshakable, a ghost in the sunlight. The narrator's voice softens, fading like smoke over an empty field. Every empire begins with a prayer and ends with a memory. We move closer now to the altar of peace. The Ara Pacis stands white and perfect, carved from marble that glows like bone. Around its walls, craftsmen have etched the story of a world redeemed. Mothers and children, senators and gods, doves and laurels. The reliefs shimmer in the afternoon sun, each figure immortal, untouched by pain. But the men who carved them, their hands still blistered from war, are long forgotten. The marble tells of peace, but the silence beneath it remembers screams. A breeze moves through the forum, carrying dust from the pyre that once burned the Republic. It settles over the altar, faint but unshakable, a ghost in the sunlight. The narrator's voice softens, fading like smoke over an empty field. Every empire begins with a prayer and ends with a memory. The camera lingers on the marble friezes, on the frozen smiles of gods and mortals alike. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the legions march again, slower this time, older, less certain. The sun begins to sink behind the 7 hills, turning the city red. And in that crimson light, the shadow of the next chapter begins to move, unseen, inevitable. The shadow of those who will inherit Rome's dream and its curse. The torches burn like suns imprisoned in iron. Their light dances across the vast stone belly of the Colosseum, Rome's monument to both triumph and terror. The air quivers with heat and human breath. Oil, sweat, and blood mingle into a scent thick enough to choke the gods. Beneath the marble arches, 100,000 voices surge as one. The crowd rises, not to pray, but to watch. The gates grind open with a sound like thunder. From the shadowed tunnels emerge men stripped of name and past. Their armor gleams faintly in the dust, dented from battles both real and staged. Gladiators, slaves of spectacle, step onto the sand, their faces calm as tombs. For them, the arena is eternity reduced to an instant. Every heartbeat counts. Every heartbeat bleeds. They kneel. Their voices echo upward, strong and resigned. Ave Caesar, morituri te salutan. Hail, Caesar, we who are about to die salute you. The emperor watches from his gilded throne, the laurel heavy upon his brow. Around him, courtiers murmur and sip wine, perfumed with crushed violets. Yet his eyes, half closed, distant, do not seem to see. Perhaps he has grown tired of death, or perhaps death has simply become too ordinary. The signal drops. Trumpets wail like wounded animals. The first clash resounds, steel on steel, flesh on stone. The crowd erupts, their cheers rising like a storm. Women toss roses from the stands, their petals spinning down like rain over carnage. Each drop of blood becomes a prayer to the god of spectacle. Each scream feeds the hunger of a people grown numb with glory.
This is Rome, where death has become theater, and life a performance paid in coin. The sand beneath the gladiators' feet shifts, a sea of crushed bones and forgotten names. Beneath it lie decades of empire's victims, rebels, criminals, kings, the condemned of 1,000 lands. They are the foundation of entertainment, their silence buried under applause. But beyond the Colosseum walls, Rome is less radiant. In narrow alleys, the poor huddle beside dying fires. They drink sour wine, dream of bread, and curse the gods who favor marble and gold. Their laughter is hollow, their hope small, yet it survives. A mother cradles a child whose eyes mirror hunger. A beggar hums a hymn stolen from a faith not yet recognized. The empire may command the sword, but not the soul. The narrator continues, his tone heavy with foreboding. An empire that feeds on blood cannot silence the whisper that promises mercy. Far below the streets, in tunnels that smell of wax and damp earth, another world gathers. The catacombs, a maze of shadow and faith. Here, by the trembling light of candles, believers carve crude symbols into stone, a fish, a cross, a name hastily written before the guards arrive. A widow kneels beside a stranger, pressing a piece of bread into his trembling hands. "Eat," she murmurs, "in his name." No wealth, no audience, no empire, only quiet faith, warm and fragile as the flame between them. The crucified God has begun to speak in whispers, and those whispers are spreading from slave to soldier, from mother to child. Rome builds higher walls, yet every wall becomes a door to something unseen. The empire that claimed eternity is haunted by an idea older than marble, stronger than steel. Meanwhile, the games go on. In the arena, the last two gladiators circle each other, their breath ragged, their eyes locked not in hatred, but in exhaustion. They are brothers in chains, bound by survival. The crowd chants for blood. One falters. The other hesitates, just long enough to remember he was once a man. The emperor's thumb lowers. A sword flashes. The crowd roars. A dove, startled from the rafters, takes flight. Its wing brushes the edge of the emperor's laurel, scattering a single white feather into the air. It drifts down slowly, almost peacefully, until it lands in a pool of blood. No one notices. The games continue, the crowd's voices blending into something monstrous and eternal.
But the narrator's voice softens like a prayer whispered against thunder. The people cheer for victory. They do not hear the sound beneath it, the sound of a world beginning to change. Night falls. The torches die one by one. The colosseum empties, its stone arches sighing with the ghosts of those who fought for the amusement of others. Blood darkens in the sand. The scent of iron lingers. Outside, Rome glows beneath the stars, its 7 hills alive with firelight. The empire sleeps, dreaming of its own magnificence. But in the distance, beyond the palaces, beyond the walls, another kind of fire burns, small, hidden, unstoppable. In a cellar lit by a single candle, a child repeats a forbidden prayer, words trembling like wings. Our Father, who art in heaven. A gust of wind slips through the cracks of the stone and carries the words upward, over the slums, over the Senate, over the domes of Jupiter's temples, higher still, beyond the empire's reach.
The camera lifts with it, rising over the vastness of Rome, over its glowing fires that look from afar like watchful eyes. The narrator's final words hang in the dark. Empires fall not in battle, but in silence, when the hearts of the forgotten begin to speak. And somewhere, deep beneath the city of marble and blood, that whisper grows, a flicker of faith in a world that has forgotten mercy, the ember from which a new age will one day ignite. The marble has begun to crack. Rain falls over Rome like ash from a dying fire. Water runs through the cracks in the forum stones, through the mouths of broken statues, through the hollow eyes of emperors who once believed they were gods. The air tastes of iron and rot, the scent of an empire grown weary of itself. A single droplet lands on a mosaic floor, where the colors of Neptune's chariot have begun to fade. Once those tiles gleamed like jewels beneath sandals of senators and queens. Now ivy creeps through the fissures, swallowing history inch by inch. The aqueducts groan like old men remembering glory. The fountains still run, but slower, weaker, as if even the water no longer believes in eternity. In the shadow of the Palatine, a beggar kneels beside a fountain once built for emperors. He cups his hands beneath the trickling water, murmuring to no one. Behind him, the bronze she-wolf still stands, her fangs dulled by rain, her pups half buried in dust. The narrator's voice lowers, heavy and reverent. Rome's heart beats slower now. The echo of power still lingers, but the pulse is fading. In marble corridors, emperors come and go like ghosts in procession. Names are carved, erased, replaced. Commodus, Caracalla, Decius, each crowned beneath banners of divine right, each slain by the same hands that swore to protect him. Praetorian guards whisper in torchlight, trading loyalty for gold, spilling blood for promise.
Their swords no longer defend, they decide. Coin and blade rule now, not law, not faith. In a villa near Ravenna, where the sea air smells of salt and mold, a weary scribe sits by a dying flame. His ink has turned to dust. He dips his quill again and again, scratching decrees into parchment that will never leave the room. His fingers tremble as he writes the words of men already forgotten, words meant to bind an empire that has already slipped its chains. Outside, the wind howls through cypress trees. The candle sputters. Somewhere beyond the walls, a wolf cries, the same ancient voice that once raised Rome's founders, now calling it home to die. The marble has begun to crack. The Senate still gathers, but their debates are hollow, echoing in marble chambers that once shaped the world. They argue over taxes, over grain, over the color of a general's cloak, while the borders crumble. In Africa, the granaries stand empty. In Gaul, the legions march without pay. In Britannia, smoke rises where the walls once held. At the empire's edge, a soldier stands atop Hadrian's wall. The rain slides down his armor like tears. He looks north into the mist, the land beyond the world, where ghosts of tribes wait in the fog. He can hear them faintly, the beat of drums, the howl of wolves. He wonders if his name will be remembered, if anyone in Rome still knows this wall exists.
Here, at the end of empire, men still stand, not for glory, not for gold, but because they were born to hold the line. Beyond the frontiers, the Germanic tribes gather, Vandals, Goths, Franks, listening to stories carried by deserters and traders. They hear of a city soft with luxury, of marble that crumbles, of gods that no longer answer prayers. Their fires burn brighter as the empire's torches fade. In the marketplaces of Rome, once filled with color and song, only the echoes remain. A potter shapes clay in silence. A baker kneads dough for a city that no longer hungers. Children chase doves through colonnades cracked by time. Life persists, stubborn, fragile, human. For even as the empire fractures, the people endure. A mother hums a lullaby in a language once foreign, but now Roman. A blacksmith hammers a sword, not for an emperor, but for the son who will guard the village when the legions no longer return. The empire, vast as it was, is now stitched together by memory, by stories whispered over bread, by the smoke of hearths burning where palaces have gone cold. And still the world moves. In Constantinople, marble domes rise, the light of a new Rome flickering in the east. In the west, the old city sinks into twilight. The senators still wear their togas, their sandals brushing marble floors polished by ghosts. They speak of peace while bandits rule the roads. They raise toasts to unity as provinces slip away like sand through trembling hands. The narrator's voice turns to a whisper. Power does not die in thunder. It fades in murmurs.
in the sound of quills scratching laws no one will read. Night deepens over Rome. The bells toll slowly, their bronze throats cracked from centuries of service. Each note echoes longer than the last, drifting over empty forums and silent temples. The statues of the gods stare through ivy and rain, their faces softened by time. The streets gleam with water and memory. In a scholar's cell, far from the noise of the dying city, a single candle burns. Its light flickers across scrolls of Virgil and Livy, the words of men who once believed the empire would outlive stars. The scholar's eyes are tired. He dips his quill one last time, whispering as he writes, Roma Aeternum. But the ink runs dry before the words are finished. He leans back, listening. The silence of centuries breathes around him, soft, immense, inevitable. The flame wavers, dances once, twice, then bows to darkness. The narrator's voice fades to a near whisper, sorrowful yet serene. Every empire ends, not with a cry, but with a breath, a single flame trembling before the wind. Rome does not fall in a day. It exhales and becomes memory. Outside, dawn begins to rise, pale and uncertain, over the ruins of the greatest city the world has ever known. And somewhere beyond the walls, where forests and fog reclaim what marble built, the sound of hooves begins again. The world is changing. The empire has fallen silent, but history, ever restless, stirs anew.
Snow drifts over Constantinople, soft, deliberate, endless. It settles upon domes of gold and crosses of bronze, upon the tiled streets where the empire breathes in incense and exhales prayer. The world beyond is broken and silent, but here, in this city between two continents, the light endures. The Bosporus shivers beneath the wind. Lanterns sway along the harbor walls, their reflections quivering on black water like trembling stars. Bells from the Hagia Sophia toll the morning hour, their sound rolling through marble corridors, through crowded markets, through the very veins of the city that still calls itself Rome. The West has dimmed, its temples cracked, its banners fallen, but in the East the flame still burns. Inside the Hagia Sophia, incense spirals upward into the vaults, mingling with the slow thunder of hymns sung in Greek. The air is thick with the scent of myrrh, sweat, and devotion. Beneath the mosaic of Christ Pantocrator, Emperor Justinian sits enthroned, a mortal haloed in sunlight. His eyes are weary, yet certain. His robes shimmer like molten garnet. His hands rest upon the armrests of history itself. Beside him stands Theodora, queen, courtesan, savior. Her gaze is sharper than steel, her silence a weapon more dangerous than any sword. The courtiers bow not only to the emperor, but to her shadow. Between them, an empire balances on parchment and blood. Laws inked in libraries, conquests inked on battlefields. Justinian dreams of restoration, renovatio imperii,
the rebirth of Rome. He sends generals like hounds into the old provinces, Belisarius to the sands of Africa, Narcissus to the ruins of Italy. The thunder of war drums echoes across forgotten lands, reclaiming cities where Latin prayers still haunt the stones. Yet conquest comes at a cost. Coin drains like water from a cracked cistern, and hunger seeps into the alleys of Constantinople. Still, life surges through the streets. Merchants cry out in 3 tongues, Latin, Greek, Coptic, bartering over silks from Persia, amber from the Baltic, spices carried across deserts by caravans older than kings. Fishermen unload the morning's catch by the Golden Horn. The smell of salt and cinnamon fills the air. The city feels eternal, but eternity is fragile. In the Hippodrome, that vast roaring heart of Constantinople, the people gather not for prayer, but for spectacle. The chariots race, wheels shrieking, hooves pounding the sand. Blue and green banners whip in the wind, each faction bound not only by sport, but by loyalty, by faith, by blood. On this day, the cheers turn to cries. It begins with a single chant, Nika, victory. But its echo grows wild, twisting into something darker. The blues and greens unite in rage against the throne. Years of taxes, corruption, and imperial arrogance ignite in one collective scream. Nika! Again, louder, shaking the marble arcades. The city explodes. Smoke coils into the sky as torches find timber. The Senate is besieged, palaces burned, churches desecrated. The people tear down statues of emperors as if tearing down the gods themselves. The sound of chaos is deafening. Bells clashing, steel meeting flesh, the chant swelling like a storm tide. The Hippodrome becomes a cauldron of fury. Tens of thousands gather there, believing themselves invincible. Justinian falters. For a moment, one human moment, the emperor who dreamed of restoring Rome is ready to flee it. His ships wait at the harbor. The empire hangs by a thread of fear. But Theodora rises.
Those who have worn the crown should never survive its loss. Royalty is a fine burial shroud. The words strike like iron. Justinian stops trembling. The emperor's resolve hardens again. He calls for Belisarius, for Narcissus, for vengeance. And before dawn, imperial soldiers seal the Hippodrome. The gates close with the sound of doom. Inside, the mob still chants Nika, unaware that history is about to silence them. Then the slaughter. Steel flashes in torchlight. The cries turn to terror. In the sand where chariots once raced, blood pools like spilled wine. When the sun rises, 40,000 lie dead beneath the marble arches. The heart of Constantinople beats slower now, but it beats for Justinian. The rebellion dies in ash and silence, and from that silence he rebuilds. Stone by stone, column by column. He will not let ruin be the last word. Where fire had devoured the Hagia Sophia, he commands a new one to rise, grander, holier, impossible. Architects from across the world gather, their tools clinking like prayers.
When the dome is finally raised, sunlight floods through its crown, not gentle, but divine. It spills like liquid gold upon the marble floors, upon mosaics of angels, upon faces that look upward and whisper, "God walks here." The narrator's voice softens, reverent. If Rome has died, it has not been buried. It lives in a new tongue, under a new sun. The city breathes again, scarred but radiant. Scholars ink the laws of Justinian into codices that will outlast empires. Priests sing hymns that tremble through centuries. Children play beneath domes that defy gravity, their laughter rising into the same air that once carried smoke. And above them all, Hagia Sophia stands like a second sky, a monument not just to faith, but to human defiance, to the refusal to fade. Outside, the snow melts from the domes. The golden roofs gleam in the pale light. The sea glitters with ships bound for Egypt, for Antioch, for the edges of the known world. The empire has survived, not by sword alone, but by will. As dusk falls, the muezzin's distant call from across the straits mingles with the church bells, a strange harmony of futures yet to come. The narrator pauses, the tone neither triumphant nor mournful, but aware. Rome has not died, he whispers, it has merely changed its tongue. The camera lingers on the Hagia Sophia, sunlight spilling through its dome like divine breath. Then slowly, the light fades to ember. The scene dissolves into the eastern horizon, where desert winds carry the whisper of a new faith rising beyond the mountains. A sound of hoofbeats, faint at first, then growing, echoing against the sands. History turns again. The sea is restless tonight. Waves hurl themselves against the cliff as if trying to reclaim it, white foam tearing at black stone. Above, gulls cry like lost souls circling the edges of the world. Their voices are swallowed by the wind that scours the monastery walls, a wind that smells of salt, of rain, of memory. Inside, beneath an arch of cold stone, a single candle burns. Its light trembles against the damp air, casting long shadows across the scriptorium. Here, silence is sacred, broken only by the scratching of a quill, the soft turning of parchment, the quiet rhythm of breath. The monk bends over his work, his face half lit by gold, half swallowed by darkness. Ink pools at the tip of his feather. He dips it again, slow, deliberate, and draws a careful line across the page. Latin letters, shaped with reverence, bloom beneath his hand. Each one is a prayer, a bridge to a vanished world. Roma Aeterna, eternal Rome. The candle flickers, and the ink gleams like fresh blood. Outside these walls, the empire has long since crumbled. The legions are gone, the aqueducts dry, the marble temples swallowed by ivy and moss. In their place rise tribes and kingdoms, Lombards, Franks, Goths, each carving their claim from the bones of what was. Smoke drifts from burned villages, and roads once built for emperors now lead only to ruin. But here, on this cliff between sea and sky, Rome still breathes. Not in stone or sword, but in scripture. Not in power, but in memory. The monastery hums with quiet labor. In one corner, Bread bakes in clay ovens, the scent warm and human. In another, wine ferments in silence, the slow alchemy of patience and faith. Candles are dipped, bells are polished, and the sound of whispered psalms fills the air like a tide rising in the dark. The monks move like ghosts through corridors of time, their robes brushing against walls older than their language. They do not speak of conquest or empire, only of endurance, of light kept alive. The narrator's voice lowers, solemn. Rome has not vanished, it has retreated into ink, into parchment, into prayer. The monk's hand trembles as he writes. His quill scratches across the skin of a lamb stretched smooth, a parchment that once lived and breathed. He copies the words not as a scholar, but as a witness. He knows they are all that remain of a world that believed itself immortal. A drop of ink spills, a small black sun spreading on the page. He sighs, then whispers under his breath, "Pax vobiscum, peace be with you." The words drift into the quiet like incense, lost among the echoes of chanting from the chapel below. He lifts his eyes to the window. Beyond the narrow glass, the ruins of an old aqueduct gleam under the moonlight, ribs of a forgotten giant stretching toward the sea. Once it carried water from distant hills to marble fountains that sang for emperors. Now it carries nothing but wind. The monk watches it with a kind of sorrow, not for what was lost, but for what must be remembered. A storm gathers beyond the horizon. The sea darkens. Thunder murmurs like a god turned old and tired. The candle gutters. Still he writes. Each word a defiance. Each line an act of faith. Footsteps echo through the corridor. A knock sounds at the monastery gate, hesitant, hollow. The monk sets down his quill and listens. The knock comes again, softer this time, carried by the wind. He rises, the hem of his robe brushing over the cold stone floor. When he opens the door, the sea's breath rushes in, wild and cold. A pilgrim stands there, shivering beneath a tattered cloak. His eyes are sunken, his skin pale. The scent of the road clings to him, dust, sweat, and plague. Behind him, the night stretches infinite and indifferent. The monk hesitates only a moment, then steps aside. Pax vobiscum, he murmurs again, voice trembling like the flame. Peace be with you.
He leads the stranger to the hearth, where a small fire fights the chill. The pilgrim's hands shake as he accepts a crust of bread, a cup of watered wine. He eats in silence, the crackle of the fire the only sound between them. When he finally speaks, his voice is rough. They say Rome is gone. The monk studies the flames. Rome is never gone, he replies softly. It only changes its shape. The pilgrim nods, uncertain whether he understands. The two sit there, two remnants of two worlds, listening to the sea pounding the cliffs below. The narrator's voice becomes hushed, reverent. The empire that once spanned continents now survives in whispers, in the turning of pages,
in the patience of men who refuse to forget. Above them, the storm breaks. Rain lashes the roof. The wind howls like a beast unchained. Yet inside, the candle burns steady, defiant against the dark. When the pilgrim sleeps, the monk returns to his desk. His hands are stiff, his eyes weary, but the ink still gleams beneath the quill's edge. He copies the last line, letters ancient and solemn. S.P.Q.R., the Senate and People of Rome. He stares at it for a long moment, the symbol of a vanished power, now reborn as a memory. Then, with care, he blows gently across the page. The ink shivers, drying beneath his breath. Outside, the waves crash against the cliffs, again and again, relentless, eternal. The candle flickers, the parchment glows like gold. And in that small room, on a storm-lashed coast at the edge of the known world, civilization survives, one trembling line at a time. The camera drifts outward, through the window, across the ruins, over the roaring sea. The aqueduct gleams faintly in the rain, its arches like vertebrae in the skeleton of history. The narrator's voice fades into the wind. Though the marble has fallen, the idea still lives, in ink, in prayer, in the quiet defiance of those who remember. The waves roll on, the candle's light dims, and far beyond the horizon, a new dawn begins to gather, one that will bring kings crowned by bishops, banners raised in holy wars, and a world reborn from the ashes of faith. The fire crackles. Shadows twist across the stone walls of a northern hall. The air is thick with smoke and the scent of pine. A man wrapped in wolfskins leans toward the hearth, his face half lit, half lost in the flame. Around him, warriors murmur in a language born of the forest, their voices low and reverent. He stares into the heart of the fire, as if searching for Rome. Outside, the wind claws at the timbers. Beyond the frozen hills lies a world in fragments, kingdoms rising from the bones of empire, each king clutching a dream older than himself. The voice of the narrator descends like a prayer over embers. The empire is gone, but its shadow remains. The ghost of Rome still rules the living. The men in the hall speak of honor, vengeance, and land. Yet in their laws, in their Latin oaths, in the gleam of their coins, something ancient whispers through the ages. Rome breathes still, not in marble, but in memory. The cry of empire is gone, but its shadow remains. The ghost of Rome still rules the living. The men in the hall speak of honor, vengeance, and land. Yet in their laws, in their Latin oaths, in the gleam of their coins, something ancient whispers through the ages. Rome breathes still, not in marble, but in memory. The camera drifts outward, through the window, across the ruins, over the roaring sea. The aqueduct gleams faintly in the rain, its arches like vertebrae in the skeleton of history.
The narrator's voice fades into the wind. Though the marble has fallen, the idea still lives. In ink, in prayer, in the quiet defiance of those who remember. The waves roll on, the candle's light dims, and far beyond the horizon, a new dawn begins to gather. One that will bring kings crowned by bishops, banners raised in holy wars, and a world reborn from the ashes of faith. The fire crackles, shadows twist across the stone walls of a northern hall. The air is thick with smoke and the scent of pine. A man wrapped in wolfskins leans toward the hearth, his face half lit, half lost in the flame. Around him, warriors murmur in a language born of the forest, their voices low and reverent. He stares into the heart of the fire, as if searching for Rome. Outside, the wind claws at the timbers. Beyond the frozen hills lies a world in fragments, kingdoms rising from the bones of empire, each king clutching a dream older than himself. The voice of the narrator descends like a prayer over embers. The empire is gone, but its shadow remains. The ghost of Rome still rules the living. The men in the hall speak of honor, vengeance, and land. Yet in their laws, in their Latin oaths, in the gleam of their coins, something ancient whispers through the ages. Rome breathes still, not in marble, but in memory.
But the dream has not died. It lingers, restless, like smoke that cannot find the sky. In the heart of the Frankish realm, one man dares to grasp it. His name is Karl, Charles, son of Pippin, a giant among men, born of iron and faith. They will call him Charlemagne, the Great Charles. He rides at dawn, his breath a ghost in the cold air. Frost glitters on his beard, and his sword, the emperor's dream, flashes with each heartbeat. Behind him, the Rhine murmurs like a god awakening. His banners rise with the sun, cloth of gold, embroidered with eagles reborn in thread, their wings outstretched over a kingdom still finding its shape. He does not see conquest as glory. He sees it as order, the restoration of something divine. Where others see chaos, he sees Rome sleeping, waiting to be summoned from its grave. Let faith bind what war cannot, he murmurs. And so the priests walk beside his soldiers. Crosses held high, they sanctify the sword. Every battle becomes a sermon, every victory a hymn. Through fire and frost, Charlemagne builds not just a kingdom, but a vision. Monasteries rise where villages once burned. Scholars copy Latin verses in scriptoria that smell of wax and parchment. His empire becomes a strange echo. The sword and the quill, steel and scripture, sharing one breath. The old roads awaken. Traders carry silk and salt. Pilgrims speak the same prayers, though their tongues differ. The word imperium returns to the world, spoken softly, like a forbidden spell. Rome,
the crown and the memory. And then winter, in the year of our Lord 800. Rome sleeps beneath pale skies. Its stones are ancient, its people thin with hunger. The marble fora are cracked, the once golden roofs now green with age. Yet when the bells toll from the Lateran hill, the air trembles, as though time itself has turned its head. Within the cathedral, torchlight flickers upon frescoes that remember better days. Priests chant in Latin, not the language of the streets anymore, but of heaven, of empire, of eternity. Charlemagne enters in silence. His boots echo across the marble, the same marble that once bore emperors draped in purple. The scent of incense curls around him, thick and holy. He kneels before the altar, head bowed. The Pope steps forward, the weight of 2 worlds in his trembling hands, the crown of the Caesars reborn in gold and faith. As the crown touches Charlemagne's head, the choir erupts, Gregorian voices rising into the vaults like wings unfurling. Bells ring across Rome's 7 hills, echoing down alleys where beggars kneel to glimpse the procession. A Roman emperor reborn. But beneath the splendor, the stones remember. The wind through the ruins whispers of other kings, of Caesar, of Augustus, of empire's pride and its fall. For the marble trembles not for conquest, but for memory. Charlemagne's breath is visible in the cold air. He is a man of the north, his hands more suited to the sword than the scepter. And yet now, beneath the gilded dome, he carries eternity upon his brow. He does not smile. Perhaps he knows the truth, that every crown is also a shackle. The weight of the crown. Outside, as the procession winds through the streets, the people shout his name, but their voices are thin against the vastness of Rome. The empire he inherits is not of stone. It is an idea, fragile and infinite. His empire will stretch from the Pyrenees to the Elbe, from the North Sea to the Mediterranean. Yet within it, the seeds of division already stir. Sons will fight sons, borders will blur. But for this moment, in the holy city's twilight, it feels as if the world has circled back upon itself, as if Rome, through faith, has drawn breath again. In Aachen he will gather scholars, Alcuin from York, Theodulf from Spain, to rebuild the light of learning. The script they devise, the Caroline hand, will become the language of Europe's rebirth. Parchment will replace the crumbling stone as civilization's vessel. Charlemagne will die as all men do, his flesh given to earth, his name to time. Yet the dream he carried will outlive both sword and crown. It will echo in the halls of kings and cathedrals yet unborn, in the laws and letters that define a continent still haunted by Rome's ghost. Back in that northern hall, the fire has burned low. The wolfskins hang heavy with smoke. The warlord, now emperor in name, pilgrim in spirit stares once more into the embers. The flame wavers. For a moment he sees it, the reflection of a city that will never truly die. Rome, not as it was, but as it endures. In prayer, in parchment, in the memory of men who refuse to forget. He exhales, and the flame bends to his breath, as if answering. The narrator's voice fades into the hiss of the sea wind and the tolling of distant bells. Marble may crumble, but the idea endures. The empire is no longer built of stone. It is built of words, of faith, of fire. And in the breath of kings, the ghost of Rome still lingers. The crown glints once more beneath torchlight. A mortal man kneels before eternity. His breath rises like incense, vanishing into the cold, sacred air. Fog drapes itself over the Tiber like a funeral shroud. The river moves slowly, thick and dark, carrying centuries within its depths. Ashes, prayers, bones, coins. From the 7 hills, bells begin to toll, soft and distant, calling the faithful to another dawn. Rome breathes, scarred but still breathing. Between the ruins of triumphal arches, life stirs. Merchants laying out baskets of figs, children chasing stray dogs, priests hurrying beneath the weight of their vestments. The morning light, pale and tender, glances off marble worn smooth by 1,000 years of footsteps. Once legions had thundered here, their sandals striking rhythm like a heartbeat of empire. Now the echo belongs to pilgrims' feet and the murmur of prayer. Rome has not died. It has transformed. The air is heavy with incense and dust, plaster dust, marble dust, the slow labor of a city rebuilding itself not in conquest, but in devotion. In the shadow of St. Peter's rising dome, a mason bends over a slab of stone. His hammer strikes, slow and steady, ringing through the courtyard like a heartbeat in stone. He wipes sweat from his brow, unaware that his tools, the chisel, the mallet, the rule, are the same instruments that shaped the Pantheon, that carved emperors into eternity. His breath mingles with the dust. Each blow he strikes is an echo, a dialogue with ghosts. The marble shivers as if remembering the hands of Rome's first builders.
All around him, the city hums with creation and decay entwined. Artists sketch angels on plastered walls, their pigments made from crushed lapis and burnt bone. Monks copy ancient texts by candlelight, the letters glowing gold in the darkness. The empire that once conquered the world now conquers time itself, not through armies, but through memory, art, and faith. The streets pulse with contradictions. Beggars kneel beside scholars. Cardinals glide past soldiers. The poor carry water through the same arches that once framed victory parades. Rome has traded the laurel for the cross. The eagle has folded its wings beneath the sign of Christ. But listen closely, in the hush between vespers and market cries, and the old world still whispers.
The Latin tongue survives, not in command, but in prayer. The Senate is silent, yet the Church debates in the same halls. And the stones, the eternal stones, speak softly of both empire and eternity. Sanctus, sanctus, sanctus. The choir's voices rise through the nave of St. John Lateran, echoing against walls that have seen both coronations and sackings. The sound is not victory, it is endurance, the sound of a civilization refusing to vanish. Outside the city walls, broken aqueducts claw at the horizon. Their arches, half devoured by ivy, stand like the ribs of a sleeping giant. Crows perch upon them, and children play among the fallen stones. Their laughter rings where once flowed the lifeblood of an empire, clear water that carried Rome's heartbeat across miles of stone. Now the river beneath is silent, its channels dry. But the children's voices, bright and fierce, echo something ancient. Their language is not Latin, not quite. Yet in its cadence, its rhythm, its bones, Latin still lives, disguised but unbroken. Civilizations fall, languages shift, but sound carries through time, like the river through the valley. As day fades, Rome becomes a dream again. The streets glow in twilight, a wash of gold and shadow. Candles flicker in windows, casting halos on the walls. Smoke rises from hearths, curling like whispered prayers. In the great churches, the last vespers fade to silence, and the priests extinguish their lamps. A single bell tolls, deep and slow. The Tiber answers with its low murmur, a conversation as old as memory. Pilgrims kneel before relics wrapped in glass and silver, their faces illuminated by trembling flame. They weep not for what Rome was, but for what it still is. A bridge between worlds, between flesh and spirit, between past and forever. A scholar sits beneath a broken arch, scrolls spread across his knees. He argues softly with another, the two voices tangled in Latin, the same language that once declared law, now humbling itself before faith. Their ink stains the parchment like veins across the skin of history. In the distance, the unfinished dome of St. Peter's rises, a mountain of light against the fading sky. Each brick, each line, each whisper of mortar carries the pulse of centuries. Beneath it, the mason's hammer falls again, steady and faithful, shaping not just a church, but a civilization reborn. Rome no longer commands the world, but it still defines it. Its emperors are dust, but their idea has taken new form, papal, sacred, immortal. The empire has been baptized, its glory transfigured into something quieter, more enduring. Where once an emperor's decree could shake nations, now a single prayer can move the world.
The same light that once crowned Caesar now falls upon the faces of saints. The same arches that framed triumph now cradle faith. Rome has become eternal, not through might, but
through memory. The night deepens. The Tiber reflects the city's scattered lights, each one trembling, alive, as though the river itself remembers. A monk crosses a narrow bridge, his sandals whispering against stone. He pauses midway, looking down into the dark water. The moon floats there, perfect and silent, a silver coin tossed by some forgotten hand. He bows his head and whispers, "Omnia fluent." Everything flows. The current moves beneath him, slow, unstoppable, ancient. It carries the empire's ghosts, its prayers, its dreams. In its flow lies every age, the marble and the cross, the laurel and the mitre, the sword and the pen. And as the moon ripples across the water, the narrator's voice fades, low, reverent, eternal. Empires rise and fall, but Rome never truly ends. It does not live in stone or crown. It lives in the breath of language, in the pulse of faith, in the quiet endurance of those who remember. The camera drifts down the river, past bridges, ruins, candles, shadows, until the sound of the Tiber becomes all that remains. A whisper beneath the stars, a reflection of eternity. Everything that was Rome, the voice breathes, still flows within us. The screen fades to black. The ripple of the river becomes the beating of a heart, and the next chapter waits beyond the water's edge. Night gathers over the ruins of the Forum. The world holds its breath. Between fallen columns and broken marble, the ghosts of an empire linger. Grass grows between the cracks of ancient roads, once trampled by senators, slaves, and emperors. Moonlight drips like silver upon the shattered altars of forgotten gods. The air is thick with silence, that kind of silence which is not emptiness, but memory. An owl stirs in the hollow eye of a statue, Athena, perhaps, or Caesar himself, its wings beating dust into the starlit air. The wind slides through the pillars like a whisper, carrying fragments of Latin prayers and lost commands. Ave, Gloria, Imperium. Here lies the heart that once ruled the world. Torches flicker low beside broken columns. Their flames tremble, fragile against the vast dark. Shadows twist along the marble, painting fleeting visions of triumph and betrayal. Legions marching, crowds roaring, chains clattering against stone. In that wavering light, time folds upon itself. The Forum breathes again. The clang of a distant hammer echoes, not from a blacksmith, but from centuries gone. It rings like the pulse of history, like the heartbeat of Rome beneath the earth. All things pass, the wind seems to murmur, but not all things die. A figure moves through the ruins, slow, deliberate, solitary. A historian, a seeker of echoes.
His cloak catches the night wind as he walks with a lantern in hand. Its light cuts through the dark, spilling across the stones like dawn upon the dead. His breath clouds before him, each exhale mingling with the ghosts that never left this place. He passes beneath the arch of Titus, its carvings scarred, its victories eroded by rain. Once it proclaimed conquest, now it weeps limestone tears.
The historian's boots scrape against the earth, stirring dust, stirring centuries. In the faint light, he reads the broken inscriptions carved into marble, laws, decrees, names of men who believed their words would outlast time itself. He pauses before a cracked slab, half buried in shadow. Upon it, faint but eternal, are the words, Senatus Populusque Romanus, the Senate and people of Rome. He kneels. The lantern trembles in his hand as he reaches out, fingers tracing the letters, cold against his skin. The grooves are shallow, yet deep enough to hold eternity. In that touch, the empire breathes again. He closes his eyes, and the darkness comes alive. He hears the cries of legionaries on the Rhine, the clash of shields under burning suns. He smells the smoke of temples rising to crimson skies. He sees the marble gleam of Caesar's triumph, the daggers flash in the Senate, the torchlight of barbarians flooding through the gates. He sees bread cast into the crowds, and blood staining the sand. He hears laughter and screams and the hymn of ambition that once shook the earth. But above all, he feels something else, not power, not cruelty, but endurance. The endurance of language, of law, of idea. Rome's body may have fallen, but its soul has never slept. The wind sweeps through the ruins again, colder now, sharper, as though carrying voices from beyond the veil of centuries. A torch gutters and dies, smoke curling upward like incense. The historian lifts his head, watching it fade into the dark, like an emperor's final breath. He whispers into the silence, not in modern tongue, but in the old one, soft, reverent, trembling. Roma aeternum. Rome eternal. The stones seem to hear. The silence deepens, heavy with unseen acknowledgement. For a moment, the ruins hum, the faint vibration of memory, of something vast stirring beneath the dust. Above him, the stars turn, slow, indifferent witnesses to empire and ash alike. Time moves like a tide. It does not destroy. It erases gently, grain by grain, leaving only salt upon the shore, the taste of what was. Rome is that salt, invisible yet everywhere, in law and language, in roads that still guide nations, in the rhythm of every capital that seeks eternity. Every column that rises, every flag that flutters in ambition, every ruler who believes in permanence, all are haunted by the same ghost. Rome's shadow never fades. The lantern flickers as the first trace of dawn touches the horizon. The historian rises,
turning toward the east. The air is pale now, filled with the scent of dew and margle dust. In the distance, the Pantheon catches the light, its great dome aglow with the sun's first fire. For a heartbeat, it seems as if the stone itself remembers being divine. The sun spills across the oculus, falling like molten gold upon the ancient floor. Birds cry from the bell towers, the modern city stirs. Car horns echo faintly beyond the hills where once marched legions. The Tiber glimmers beneath bridges older than memory. The sound of morning bells rolls across the rooftops, mingling with the ghostly echo of legion horns. For a breath, past and present are one, the living and the dead sharing the same dawn. The historian closes his notebook. The ink has frozen mid-thought, a line unfinished, perhaps because no thought can ever truly finish Rome. He looks once more upon the words carved into the stone, tracing them in the light of morning. S.P.Q.R.
Once they commanded the world. Now they whisper only to those who listen. He sets his hand upon the marble, gentle, almost as if in farewell. His lips move in a whisper, not of mourning, but of reverence. Everything ends, he murmurs, but some things remain. He stands, shoulders bowed, not in defeat, but in humility. Around him the ruins glow with dawn, not dead, but dreaming. The grass shivers in the light breeze, the statues seem to breathe. Somewhere beyond the Palatine, a church bell tolls, slow, deliberate, ancient. Its echo winds through the arches, through the stones, through the centuries, and for one fragile moment, it feels as though the city itself exhales. Rome, remembering. The historian begins to walk away. His lantern grows dim in the growing light. Each step he takes stirs the dust, the same dust that once bore the sandals of emperors. As he passes beneath the shadow of the arch once more, the camera lingers on the ruins, the marble, the weeds, the light. Then the wind moves again, soft, unending, and carries with it the faintest whisper. Roma aeternam. It is not his voice now, but the voice of the stones, the voice of time, the voice of all that endures. As the sun climbs higher, the forum gleams, its broken columns burning gold, its silence alive with memory. Around him the ruins glow, the marble, the weeds, the light. Then the wind moves again, soft, unending, and carries with it the faintest whisper. Roma aeternam. It is not his voice now, but the voice of the stones, the voice of time, the voice of all that endures. As the sun climbs higher,
The Forum gleams, its broken columns burning gold, its silence alive with memory. The screen fades slowly to the shimmer of morning light upon marble, to the cry of distant bells, to the eternal murmur of the Tiber. Empires fall, the voice returns, softer now, fading into wind and light. But their breath remains in the world. The river glints, endless and patient. And somewhere, far beyond the walls, the next chapter of civilization begins to stir.